I'm going to be talking to a recruiter who works specifically with the disability community. So I'm going to introduce her right now. Anessa Powell is the founder and CEO of AllAbility Recruiting, a disabled woman-owned recruitment firm in Charlotte, North Carolina that specializes in connecting disabled job seekers with meaningful employers. Anessa has turned her rare disease diagnosis, Addison's disease, into a career that highlights the needs of people with invisible disabilities. Anessa, I'm so glad you're here with me this morning. And hello to everyone who's joining us this morning. And so, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. I will be honest, it's been quite a day. Our Wi-Fi went out at our house. So
Oh
my
no.
gracious and lovely friend said, come on over here and take care of your LinkedIn Live. I was like, thank you. So here I am from not my normal location, but she has a beautiful home.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. I was gonna
And,
say, wow,
and she,
that's quite the living room. I love
isn't
this
it beautiful?
detail.
She really
Yeah,
should have gone into interior
that's
design.
it.
It's lovely. So here I am, and I'm excited to be here. Wi-Fi
Ah,
and all.
yes. I'm so excited you're here too, and I'm glad we're able to talk if your Wi-Fi went out. I hope it's not a problem for the rest of the day. So,
Oh, they're supposed to be out at like 1 o'clock today. So fingers crossed.
oh
When
yes,
you work from your home, there's
yes,
always fun and exciting opportunities and challenges that come your way.
yeah. Lots of interruptions too from our dogs. So
Exactly.
many. So I wanted to ask you, so Anessa, in
Yes.
2013, you were diagnosed with Addison's disease. And can you explain to us what Addison's is and the symptoms you had before the diagnosis?
Sure. So Addison's disease is also known as primary adrenal insufficiency. So basically, it means my adrenal glands decided to stop working. So, with Addison's, it actually falls into two categories. It falls into the autoimmune disease category and the rare disease category. So, after the birth of my first child, not my adrenals, but my thyroid decided to go out, and I developed Hashimoto's. So, that was the start of it, really. And then, after the birth of my second child, my son, in 2008, that's when things started to take a very sideways turn. And it was many years of random, very random symptoms that, separately they could have meant 1,000 different things. And that's oftentimes what happens in the autoimmune world. And I will say the average time to get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in this country is 3 years. And I pretty much kind of fit that mold. But my symptoms
Oh,
were very odd in a sense that it would range from heavy fatigue, which a lot of autoimmune conditions have. And then I would get sick. But for me, it would take me forever to get over certain things. And even one summer in 2012, I had pneumonia for almost 4 months. And it was a very hard thing to get over. And eventually I got over it. And what we didn't know at the time is that my adrenal glands were starting to go out. And for those that don't know, your adrenal glands basically help you fight off infection. Well, when you start going out, it's hard to fight things. And I would get over it and then I would relapse. And then I would think I was over it and then I'd relapse. And then I would have chronic sinus infections that I just could not kick. And what was happening is I would go on a steroid, which was a prednisone at the time, and I would feel so much better. Well, that is because when you have Addison's, you take a steroid to replace that hormone that you don't create within your adrenal glands. So no wonder I felt better because my adrenals were like, yes, I'm finally getting something. So the other really weird side effect is I got very, very dark pigmentation. And that actually is the only good side effect of the disease, is that a lot of us look a lot tanner than we actually are. And I was just getting tan. And I thought, I've always tanned very easily, but I got really, really dark. And it was so much so people were like, have you gone to the beach? Have you been in the Caribbean? And I was like, no, I thought, wow, this is cool. I'm going to get tanner as I get older, not knowing what was happening. Well, I had surgery at the end of 2012, sinus surgery. wonderful decision because it actually put my body into crisis, which we didn't know at the time. So in January of 13, I got very, very sick. They admitted me to the hospital. Short story, but basically 11 days later, it took them 11 days to figure out what was wrong with me. And it was a really scary time because my body was shutting down and they didn't know what was happening. Finally, I was diagnosed and really my life was forever changed. Finally, I had a name for all of these symptoms. I wasn't going crazy in my head. It wasn't something that, when you don't feel well, it's very hard to describe what that is like to people. And I was told many times it was because I was a mom of young children. And I was so thankful to finally have a name for what was happening to me. And then my life was changed and thrown into this world of rare diseases, thrown into this world of, but you don't look sick, invisible disability world, and found my new passion of what that looked like for not only me, but for others out there within the disability community, as well as just, people who may have had gaps in their resume. I had every intention of going back to work when my son would go off to school. And that's when my health decided to go sideways and I wasn't able to work. And it was trying to figure out what that was going to look like for me and working full time. And so fast forward many years, and that's how we created AllAbility Recruiting. It stemmed from my diagnosis 10 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. That sounds like it was like being on a carousel and then having all these symptoms and not getting definite answers for quite a while later.
Yes,
So
going to many
I'm really glad you
specialists.
got a firm diagnosis. You went to many specialists and then, yeah, and sometimes the questions they ask you, they're fine. There's really nothing wrong with you. And did you get a lot of that?
A lot of that.
Yeah.
Many times I would leave very frustrated and just sit there and talk to my husband about, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand why I'm not getting any answers. And I am very thankful. I am one of the lucky ones. Only 1 in 100,000 people are diagnosed. And it's not something that doctors look for. It's not something that people automatically test for. So to finally be in a position, I hated that I had to go into crisis for it to be diagnosed. However, I am fortunate that I had a whole team who said, we got to figure this out because this person is not going to make it much longer if we don't. And they finally had an answer. And now, just managing it with medicine and just being mindful of my lifestyle, I feel like I am so blessed to be able to do that and to speak with you this morning and being able to talk about it.
Yes. I'm really glad you're doing much better since your diagnosis. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
How did your Addison inspire you to start working with the disability community?
Well, my Addison's definitely was the catalyst for it. But I will say that when I was 10 years old, my dad was in a car crash. He was hit by a drunk driver and sustained a traumatic brain injury, a TBI. And that was my first introduction into the world of invisible disabilities. Before the accident, he was a very popular teacher, coach, and whatnot. And then after the accident, he was not himself. He was not the same person. And it was really a true testament to people understanding this new world of who he is now or who he was then. And you really find out who your friends are truly and fighting that whole thing. So growing up that way and learning from him and how the interactions were, that was my first introduction to it. The irony is not lost on me now that I too have a rare disease, or not, he didn't have a rare disease, but I have an invisible disability like he did. And but you don't look sick is truly a big thing for the invisible disability community and being able to speak to that. So, a couple of years ago, my husband and I were exploring ideas of what we wanted to do next. He had been in corporate America for over 20 years. I was looking at our next thing because I really felt very confident that I wanted to continue this passion of mine of raising awareness and talking about it. And so it was very much a lightning bolt moment for us in launching AllAbility Recruiting. We felt the time was right. We felt that businesses are starting to really understand what it's like to be able to honor and just speak to the largest minority group in the world. And we said, you know what? We want to create this opportunity, this recruiting firm that really just gives the opportunity for people with disabilities to just get their foot in the door. That's all we're saying. We're not saying we want you to hire them because they have a disability. Nobody wants to be the token person within a company. They just want to have the opportunity to have a fair shot, to have a chance to prove to you that I am so much more than my disability. I am worthy of being within this company. And so here we are. It's been an awesome, organic, fun ride since we launched in March of 2021.
Wow, I didn't know it was so recent. I
Yes,
think you've
yes.
grown quite a bit since, right?
Well,
Yes.
it was one of those things, and we joke about this, is that we didn't know what we were going to get when we launched, right? We just threw that big net out and we were like, see what we catch first. And
Yeah.
we originally began with recruiting. And that's our absolute who we are in the employment process. However, we quickly learned in our feedback from our clients and companies that they want to do a disability employment. They just were a little leery. They didn't quite know where to begin. So they said, okay, how do we go about this? And we're like, okay. So we launched training classes. So we have training sessions where we kind of delve into everything ranging from disability 101 all the way to interviewing people and accommodations and what that looks like in all forms, to culture and why it's important, why you should care about it. Basically, show me the money, right? Show me the bottom line. Why do I need to focus on this? And we had these great training sessions, and then the companies would be like, that was fantastic. Now what do we do? So that's why we launched the consulting. So this is the third arm of our business, our newest one that we just recently launched. And we're very excited about it because it gives us the opportunity to go into our clients and say, let us look at the whole life cycle of an employee. Basically, let us go in and see from the application process, is it accessible, to the interviewing, are you doing it properly? Are you ready? Are you prepared? Are your recruiters, your hiring team, you name it, do they know how to interview? And then once they get hired, are they being supported? Do you have an ERG already within your company? Do they feel like they're being even just met where they are when it comes to their disability and their accommodations? Just basically that whole life cycle. We call it our soup to nuts approach. Let us help you really walk the walk when it comes to being disability friendly.
Right. So, the tagline for AllAbility recruiting is focused on people's capabilities, not their inabilities. I love that. How do you find meaningful employers to connect with the disabled candidate?
So for us, it's recently just been through our networks and doing stuff like this, getting the word out, and talking about who we are. And we're always surprised for us that people are like, oh, wow, we didn't know that this was a thing. And we're like, yeah, we're absolutely a thing, because you talk about an underrepresented group that it's time. It is time for the disability community not to be overlooked anymore. When our big thing is when we're talking to diversity, equity, inclusion officers, that's our big push, is that you say you're committed, but are you committed really? Are you including in your numbers that disability piece? And oftentimes the answer is no, we're not. We're focused on race, we're focused on gender, we're focused on sexual orientation, which is fantastic. But then our point is, okay, but when you're talking about the disability community, it's intersectional. So you not only have someone who's disabled, you're also talking about all the other minority groups too. You cannot overlook that. So, when we have our conversations with them, we're like, if you want to get ahead of the aging population, if you want to get ahead of your workforce, you're going to have a younger workforce that's coming into your organization that has been advocating for themselves from very, very early age. They've had 504 plans, they had IEPs, they know what they need and want to succeed. And if you can't meet that right off the bat, then they're not going to work for you. So just really encouraging that. So if you're somebody who is in a business that has been thinking about this and you're really wondering what that looks like, give us a call. because we can help you figure that out and work through that process because it is so important. And just, lead the way. There are many major corporations right now who are doing a fantastic job of being at the forefront of accessibility, being at the forefront of inclusive groups. But those middle companies, you guys can step up, and this is your time. And that's what we're really trying to speak to as well. It's like, now is the time to be a part of that.
Right. So, you mentioned younger workers, that they know more about their needs as opposed to older workers, older employees with disabilities. They know. I think they've been exposed more to DI and diversity and disabilities too. So I think they're a lot. That's what they're saying about Gen Z
Yeah.
right now, is that they're a lot more knowledgeable about diversity, equity, inclusion, and disabilities too. So that's great. And they're the generation that are using these accessibility features like closed captioning on videos. They are
Exactly.
the ones that are using it the most. So that gives me a lot of hope for the younger generation, that they're not completely self-involved and like everybody says. But everybody is at that age, in that age
Exactly.
range. I
Exactly.
mean, everybody is. But
It's definitely a
so,
different environment in which we grew up in because they're used to the opportunity to be expressing themselves in a little bit more broader sense than we were. And they're more comfortable in that. So when you have a business that says that you want to support those in all forms, you better be prepared to back that up because they're going to be expecting that. They want to be in an environment where they already feel like they don't have to mask, they can be themselves. And if they are saying to you, I have a disability, I need these accommodations, and this is how I will succeed within my job. And you say, sure, we can do that. And then they're not going to stay long. They're going to go work for another company who truly walks the walk and talks the talk. So that's what we just try to support and make sure that if you're saying that you're doing this, you've got to commit to it and do it right. And so, absolutely, I'll be interested to see as this generation comes up and gets older, what comes behind it.
yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. They're
Yes.
very vocal, so they have that going for them. So when you do your disability training sessions, what are the most common questions and concerns that employers have in your training session?
So it's always interesting, and we love to do it in person because we love to see people's reactions. But oftentimes we do it over Zoom because that's just the way of the world now, and the way it's easier for people to jump on from their computers and just do it that. But when we do it in person, the look on people's faces when we give them the statistics of, okay, if you look around the room or you look within your workforce, approximately 1 in 4 people have a disability. But I assure you, you don't think you do. You don't know probably who is in with your workforce that has a disability because they haven't felt comfortable in disclosing that. And we kind of walk through that. We have the 4 topics. We have Disability 101, which is that high level disability training in a sense that it just goes through what is a disability, and we do it defined by what the ADA says here in the country and the list of what's included to that. And people are often surprised that even asthma is included, or epilepsy, and now long COVID. That's a big one that's just recently been added, and people are starting to take notice of that because it is affecting lots of people. And so just from that basic one and going through those numbers and people's understanding of that, and me saying that I have a disability, and here I am leaving this training session. So it's an eye-opening experience for people to understand that they come in so many forms, especially when you're talking about that invisible piece, the non-apparent piece for the mental health conditions, because that's the largest makeup of that. And when we say to them, before the pandemic, you had a whole workforce that you probably said, okay, we're good, we're going out. And then they come back into the office, and you've got some coming back in that are now needing accommodations for their mental health. And that's a big thing the businesses probably were not prepared for. And so talking about that and how do you address that? So that's a part of it. And we love the faces of seeing people as they start to really understand. And then we go through the different models and the different ways in which people can interview based upon their disability. If you're talking about someone who is on the spectrum, someone who's neurodivergent and how to better prepare your staff and your teams to interview and doing that properly. And then rolling into the big one, which my husband leads, which is the piece on culture, which is so important. This is for your leaders, for your team leads, for your executives that truly want to understand, as we joke, show me that money, show me why I should care about it, and why is culture so important. And the big questions from that they usually end up asking us at the end is, are these numbers true? Like, is this really what's happening when we say to you that the favorability factor of businesses that employ people with disabilities, it's through the roof. People want to come to your business and enjoy your business if they know that you support people with disabilities, that you employ people, and you're proud of it and you're talking about it. And they just love that because they're blown away that this is actually a thing. And we're like, yes, trust us. When we say to you, when you employ people with disabilities and you're good to them, they're going to be good to you. And it's going to be worth it for you investing it. And then we always go back to that fundamental piece. Just be kind. When you're talking about being a business that supports people of all types, it goes back to that kindness factor. And don't we all want that? To say that's who we are. So we love the opportunity to get in front of people and talk and share and just share our knowledge. And we feel like they have tools that we're arming them with that they can go back to and use within their workforce.
Yeah, I love that. No, I'll be honest, I've never experienced in a workplace like that. That's why I work for myself now.
Yes.
So I wish you had been around when I was working full time, working for corporate America. I don't think I ever, I guess I did. But my very first real job after college was working for a computer company doing admin work. And the only accommodation I asked for was to have a sign language interpreter for our monthly meetings.
Right.
And they said, okay, we'll do it. But I never had one.
Really?
So time went on, and then there's still never an interpreter. I was there for almost 2 years. And then they fired me because they were eliminating my job or something like that. I was no man on the totem pole, so it was just easy to say, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of this position. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to sue them for discrimination. And we ended up settling in my favor. So I was really happy about that. But I
I
hope
hear.
to send them a message that the company's not around anymore. They closed a long time ago. I don't know why. But
We hear
I hope to
stories.
send a message to them that
Yeah.
they need to provide accommodations because it's the laws, part of the ADA, and
Yes.
so
And going back to
they
your
don't
original
need.
question, people ask us, like, how much is this really going to cost for these accommodations? And when we tell them that the amount is
Right.
minimal, the majority of accommodations, it's less than $500, really. It's a simple thing like having the minutes for a meeting, or, just having the agenda ahead of time, or making sure that you have captions on all of your videos, or you have an interpreter at your town hall meeting. It's not
Mhm.
hard. And that's what we really just, people are so afraid, unfortunately, of doing the wrong thing that oftentimes what happens,
It's
nothing.
true.
And that's why we're saying nothing is no longer status quo anymore. Things must happen and things have to be in place, and it can be done easily. You just need
Yeah.
a little nudge, and that's what we're here to help nudge people along.
Well, that's the thing is, even if you haven't been doing it and you just shown how things can improve in your workplace, then it's really not that hard. I think people are just afraid of how much time is it going to take me? How much is it going to cost?
This is going to
Because the
cost.
bottom line is always about cost. How much is going to cost them? But you have other expenses in your business anyway. It's just one thing to do that's for the betterment of your company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
So,
when you hire someone right the first time, the amount of turnover is already diminished, and it is expensive and
right.
costly to keep having to rehire and retrain. And so if you do it right from the beginning, you're going to
Right.
get an amazing employee if you can set this up properly. And we help walk our clients through that, what it is like if I'm presenting a candidate to them and I say, I have this candidate and she's got amazing background credentials, and these are the accommodations that she needs, are you willing to meet that? And they say, yes, we can do that. Let's interview her. Let's go through that process. And then we can make sure that that's being supported. Guess what? It's a win-win for both sides. And at the end of the day, everyone's walking away happy and feeling like, yes, this is going to work. So that to us just that's a good day for us when we're able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever come across employers that say no thanks? We'll look elsewhere. Do you ever come across that?
That's funny you asked that. So we have a lot of conversations with people that are just interested in what we're doing and want to learn. And they say, this is awesome, this is great, but they don't fully commit to it because whether it be they just are not ready and comfortable to get into that particular area, or they just don't have the budget to really commit to it. And to our point is, if you have a DEI budget, right, you are committing to certain things. Why not have the disability piece included in that? You're doing a disservice to what you're saying you're committed to when you don't. You can't say you're committed to DEI and you're saying, yes, we have so much allocated to this, if the disability piece is not included in that. And yeah, it's the comfortability factor. And I will tell you, it goes
Yeah.
a lot further if it's from the top down, the initiative being driven, as opposed to from the bottom up. And, it comes with conversations like this and with people that I see on LinkedIn or being so vocal about it. This is how change happens. This is how it continues to spread. And I think in what we talk about too is like they don't really care about it until it's something that's very intimate to them. Like they could have a sister with a disability or their mother has a disability
Right.
and then they care about it. And as we share to them always, it may not affect you now, but there is one thing that I can assure you, it might affect you in the future, or it will affect you in the future, or someone that you love. Get ahead of it now and start caring about it, because you're going to be already behind if you don't. And that's the way you start making change too. Like I said, it's just everyone, if you're hearing this and you're like, yes, this is important, we need to start caring about it, talk about it. And then once people start seeing that more and more people are talking about it, that's how change starts happening. So
Right. Right. The more we talk about it, and yeah, it's really about just putting the message out there constantly
yeah.
that there are people with disabilities. I mean, I feel like when you go out, living your everyday life, do people not see people with disabilities? No, that are visible. I mean,
Yeah.
people in wheelchairs, blind people, deaf people, if you see them signing, um, do they not see them? They probably don't see them. They don't pay attention. Just like they
Exactly.
don't pay attention to homeless people on the street. I feel like it's the same, you know. People that are perceived as different from them, they just don't pay attention to them. They just keep walking, doing their own thing. And
People see what they want to see sometimes until it intimately affects them.
yes,
And opening your
exactly.
eyes is
That
so very
is,
important. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just want to say hi to Michelle Griffin. She says hello.
Hey, Michelle.
She's
I
a
can't
great
see
person to
you.
know. And Michelle Griffin, she's a great person to know on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
She is a brand strategist. Hi, Michelle. Thank you for being here. And so, Anessa, I want to know, since having Addison's, you've had to make, excuse me, adjustments in your daily life. And so, how has having Addison's affected your home life? Have you had to make certain accommodations and adjustments?
Yeah. So after diagnosis, it was one of those things that I just didn't really know what my life is going to be like now that I had a rare disease and I have to take medicine to live, basically, is how it works. So we have to replace the hormone that our adrenal glands don't produce. So we take a steroid to live. And if I don't take the steroid, it could be a very, very hard way to go. So
Yeah.
being mindful of the clock and staying on top of the dosing schedule is very important. And with us for our adrenal glands, if we have any type of illness, infection, injury, you name it, we have to take more in order to compensate what our adrenal glands would normally do to fight that off. And the unfortunate thing is we do not have an at-home cortisol monitor at this point. I know there's one in the works, and I can't wait until that happens. So I always kind of try to explain it to people, like for people with diabetes, you can check your insulin levels and they can adjust their insulin based upon what their levels are at that point, what they need to do to feel better. Well, for us, we don't have anything like that. We literally have to go off how we're feeling. And it's so much of that is a guessing game. And so if I get the cold and I'm running a fever, I have to take more and I have to double my dose and I have to be able to do that so we don't get very, very sick. And it happens for people, especially after diagnosis. They're just trying to figure this out, how to manage their medicine, how to manage truly how to live. It's quite a process. So it has been it was a steep learning curve at first, threw myself into research and networking and talking with others that live with the disease. There's not a lot of information about it out there, unfortunately, because it is so rare. So meeting others like us and going to the meetings and having, there's an adrenal insufficiency conference coming up in March that I'm actually speaking at. I can't wait because I love being with my people because I can have a conversation and talk about my cortisol levels and everyone gets it. When you're in a room with people who get it, it's just so fulfilling. So it did change things a lot for my family because I don't have an infinite amount of energy whatsoever. If you're familiar with the spoon theory, which is something that was produced
Definitely.
years ago, based upon a number of spoons that I have during certain days, and I have to be mindful of my spoons. If you're not familiar, who's watching, go Google the spoon theory and you'll understand. And so everyone in my family knows about it. My kids know about it. And if I say to them, I'm having a low spoon count day, they get it. They just know Mom is tired. She has fatigue. I have to be very mindful of my schedule. I have to be mindful of what my weeks look like. So say, for instance, like I can block out, that's the wonder of working for yourself and being able to block out certain times within your day. Having that rest time for me is so very important just for me and my energy levels, and blocking out about an hour just to have a chance to just recharge. That's vital. If I'm doing some traveling for speaking or training classes, I have to block out the next day for me to not really have any in-person meetings. That is important for me to regroup and collect some more spoons. And so my husband is amazing. He knows it. He gets it. He knows that if I am traveling, he knows the next day Mom needs to rest. So I'm going to pick up the slack a little bit around the house and with the kids, which is vital. And, I'm very fortunate because I do have such a great support system. And just the biggest thing too is just communicating and talking about what it's like. Cause I can feel great one minute and the next minute I'm like, I have a headache. I'm just feeling a little off. So it's very, a precarious disease is a great way to put this because it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even if you take medication consistently, there are certain times that you have to take more, and then it's like you have to be very organized and keep track of every time you take your medication. That must be challenging.
I live by the clock. I will say I always know what time it is because I take my medicine 4 times a day. I take it at the same time every day. So I am constantly checking my phone to see, okay, what time is it? Am I getting close? Because I know if I don't stay on top of that time and I go like 30 minutes to an hour behind my normal schedule, I start to feel it. I'll immediately get a headache and I'm starting to feeling a little off. It makes a difference. And it's crazy how, in tune with your body you have to be in managing this disease. You really do. And just trial and error for the first few years of trying to figure it out and then getting a hang of it. So I kind of feel like I have a hang of it 10 years down the road, but I'll get another curveball next week and I'll be like, what the heck is happening? But, that's how it is.
So it sounds like it's kind of unpredictable. Would you say, is it degenerative or is it just the same throughout your life, having Addison? Does it
So
get worse or does it get better? Or
well, the unfortunate thing about autoimmune diseases is they don't typically just stay with one. They like to collect over time. So, like for me, it started out with my thyroid with Hashimoto's, and then my body decided to attack my adrenal glands. And then, I'm just trying to be very mindful of my lifestyle and my health, because if you don't watch what you eat and you stay away from gluten and you move your body in some way, which isn't always easy when you have Addison's because you don't feel great in order to exercise, but just
yeah,
being mindful of that so it doesn't develop into something else, which it does for some people. They can develop RA, rheumatoid arthritis is one that it can go to. Diabetes,
yeah,
not type 2, but actually type 1. So there's it can it continue to collect. Like I'm anemic, which is something that was developed too afterwards, and so it's just you name it, you just have to
um,
watch it. And it's just that lovely autoimmune. If you're out there and you understand,
yeah.
autoimmune diseases are fun.
You know what, Anessa? I think you just made me realize something. I have Hashimoto's myself. I've
Yes.
had it many, many years, and I do have a tumor on my adrenal glands that
Oh,
they
you
just
do.
found. Yeah, I had an MRI for flank pain a few months ago, my left flank pain, and they happened to find a tumor on my adrenal gland. So,
What are they watching it, or are you going to have your adrenal glands removed? Do you know, or?
no, my doctor doesn't want to have it removed.
Yeah, because if you do, then you
Wants
would
to
get
keep an eye
Addison.
on it and have it tested, and but no surgery as of now. I
Okay.
know I should get a test for Addison. I know, something to think about.
Right. There are people that have had their adrenals removed, and that puts them into primary adrenal insufficiency.
Right,
Or actually, is it primary or secondary? It might be secondary. I don't know. There's
right.
two different ways in which you can have adrenal insufficiency. Mine is primary because mine is autoimmune related, and I'm trying. It has to do with the hormones and whatnot. So
Right.
yeah, so definitely pay attention to that flank pain. Yes, that was a big thing for
Yeah.
me. I know when my cortisol is low because my I start getting that pain.
Let's do
Yeah,
something to think about. Okay.
yeah, stay on top of that.
Oh, like I have something else to think about. I just found out I have arthritis in my lumbar spine. So
Oh,
if
fun.
I have an adrenal problem, then oh, great. That's one other thing to worry about. But hi, Jessica. Thank you for being here this morning. I hope you learned something in here this morning. So, Anessa, we're coming up on 45 minutes now. I just wanted to ask you if you wanted to leave anyone with a tip on how to improve for employers on how to improve their hiring process,
Hmm.
recruitment process. Well, hire you, of course, as recruiter.
I was just gonna say, call AllAbility Recruiting. I would love to encourage people that as they are saying, yes, we're going to be committed to this. Yes, we want to hire people with disabilities. My first thing is don't see the disability. When someone comes into interview, don't see them for just that disability that is visible. I would say that's definitely more when it's somebody who has a visible disability. And people want to be seen as so much more than that. They want to be seen for who they are, for who the capabilities in which they can bring to your organization and their strengths. And when you look at them, see the whole person. I think that is just such a vital person. And that's what we talk about in our training sessions, is that they don't want to be, like I said, that token person within your organization. They want to be known as Anessa. They want to be known as that person who is doing a great job, not as someone who needs a cane for assistance to get around the office. So that's first and foremost. And don't be afraid to ask the questions, in a sense that don't be afraid to find out who they are and any accommodations that they need. Don't let it just be like that elephant in the room that you're not even going to acknowledge. That is just so frustrating, especially. The best thing you can do is just ask. people just want to feel like they're seen, but you can ask the question and don't be afraid of that. And so, if you're not going to call us, at least just be mindful of what it is like to be committed to that and honor people of all walks of life. That's a big thing.
Yes, I love that. That's great. Thank you so much, Anessa, for being here with us today. And I've learned quite a bit from you, especially about Addison and the recruitment process for people with disabilities, which is so important. And so I hope everybody has a great day. And thank you, Anessa, for being here this morning. And next week, I'm going to have a deaf guest to talk to you next week. This is
Awesome.
speaking, not signing.
Okay.
So join us next week on Tuesday at the same time. But this Thursday, I have a special live event with Kristen, who's a life and parenting coach for parents who have children with different neurodivergent conditions. So I hope you join me on Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, thank you, everybody. And I will see you on Thursday and also next Tuesday. Have a great day.